Hello everybody, welcome back to Dale's Rails. I decided to do a two-part video on the repair. I had some other segments that I did that I decided to include. You know, I ran into a problem with this engine after I got it restored, and I thought it would be worth sharing with those that are interested. And you know, this video also contains some products that I use for not only, you know, the servicing, but also for detailing and the, you know, the outer shell and everything. So, you know, if you're interested, please enjoy the video. Thanks. Okay, put the brushes back in. Remember the slots on these slotted brushes go facing up. Put them both back in. We're just dropping back in there. Okay, there's both the brushes in. So then we'll slide the long leg of the brush in first and the short leg in right behind it. And once that's in, we can simply just press this back down, and then we'll make sure our spring is in that slot, which it is, and then we'll put that long spring back in, the long leg, short leg. Press that back down. That back in there. Now the important thing is I'm going to go ahead and put oil directly on this shaft, but I'm also going to oil this wick just because it'll give it a jump start. It doesn't have any oil. It'd take a while for the oil in this wick to get oil on that shaft. So I'm going to put just a little drop on that shaft. You know, I know I'm touching it a couple times, but I'm only putting just a drop in there. And then we can reattach our brush plate. Somebody's definitely, I think this isn't the original motor that came in here. It looks different than that one, and this all looks like original soldering, and I can tell there's been some makeshift repairs on here. You know, they're definitely not something that's been done by a professional, I can tell you that. You can tell, you know, when we were out in the field working, our inspectors could tell which electrician wired what, because he could just tell by how each person wired. And I can tell you, this was not done. This is not a factory solder job. Little concerned about some of it. Looks like it's some of it's even cold soldered, and stuff has just kind of been piled up. So it's not really, you know, I don't know if a lot of people realize that some of these fittings on here, these eyelets and stuff, they have like a small hole in there. You should remove that solder to put these wires through the hole and then solder it back in. You don't just solder and piled up on top. So I can tell this has not been done correctly. All these joints are very suspect. You know, if it's bad enough and gives me trouble, I'll do something about it then. But until then, I guess hey, look, they seem to be holding, so that's the main thing. So now we need to make sure we oil up all of our shafts and axles. You want to do these gear shafts on these gears. It's important to do those. Also on each side of the axle here. You know, I don't know that you really need to be worried about this. This right here, you know, I'll use a little CR26 on here. You know, these are rolling really good. So, but you know, CR26, it helps with electrical properties. So, you know, be this right here, CRC 226, I guess it is. So this right here, it doesn't hurt to put a little bit on these roller pickups, but you know, if you just barely push, there it came a lot out, wasn't ready for that, but if you barely push on this, you know, that's all the more you need to get on here. You don't want to really saturate it like I just did the first time. And but that'll give you, you know, a little bit better electrical properties too to this. It's going to just make that surface a little, this is just residual that's left and draining out of the straws, what I'm putting on there. And you know, it doesn't hurt, I guess, to do a little down here. Just you know, helps make those surfaces you know, better able to conduct electricity properly. And we need to do, we already did these shafts here. You do that shaft here. Well, that's why it's good to have more than one oiler. Apparently the tip of that got plugged up, so I'm going to just use this one. This oiler here. Now this, these gears seem to be a lot tighter than these over here. Now, I like to do all the shafts of the gears. All the axles. I'll make sure you get good oil on all that. Okay. You know, then if there's any residual, you might take the time to kind of wipe a little of that off. This right here. Yeah, there we go. That's rotating good now. This near's rotating better. Yeah, that's rotating a lot better. That's good. Yeah, see, that's getting oil worked in there. I can tell how much more free this is now that I've greased it and oiled it. This will only get better as time goes by. The more this gets worked in there and the more it has time to penetrate and everything. So it's just going to be a much better running locomotive now. You know, like get all the much crud out of these things that I can. Not good to leave any of that in there, really. You know, dirt and oil just doesn't mix. Okay, so that's that. And, something else I use, I'll talk to you guys about. I just use this trim restorer on my shells. This interior detailer, that's probably another good. I don't really use this so much. This is just a turtle wax probably for like automotive. This would probably work fine on this shell. But, if you've got some shells that are plastic shells, now I'm talking about, that are really, really, really dry and, faded, this will help pull that back out. And, and a little bit of this just goes a long way. And, this shell's already been cleaned up. It just needs to, I'm going to go ahead and put some of this on there. As you can see, I don't know if you can see this here. This will actually bring the luster back out if you want that. If you want an old dull one, maybe you want an old dull one. That would be weathering. And, there's nothing wrong with leaving it that way either if you want to leave it that way. For me, I just like mine all pretty new and shiny looking. This shell's in really good shape. It's got no wear on it, really, to speak of. This Southern that's printed on there, that's the way it was from the factory. It looks kind of like it's broken and stuff, but it's that's just the way that was painted on there. This is an 8301, so they got the cab number right. It's just not a Williams 8301. So I don't know what made him think this was a Williams. I don't know, maybe they couldn't find a name on the outside of the locomotive and just assumed it was a Williams because it's a newer model. But Lionel never made a Southern Trainmaster in the post-war, to my knowledge. I believe there was only, was it three different post-war Trainmasters? There was a Jersey Central, the Lackawanna. There was a couple of versions of the Lackawanna. I believe it was the Lackawanna, and then the Virginian. So anything you find Lionel in a different road, it would have to be at least the post-war era or newer. I could take, these railings off, but I'm not going to. You can see I've already, off camera a little bit ago, I straightened up these railings. I don't know if you can see that now. They're more in line. They're not bent in, where somebody's been grabbing it. These are pretty fragile too. I mean, some of these are bent out of shape this way. They still need a little bit of straightening. But there that is, just kind of get that worked in. You can see what kind of a job that did to this shell. Like I said, this shell really wasn't bad to begin with, so it didn't take much of that restore to really restore it. And like I said, this is turtle wax trim restorer. It's supposed to take, almost like sun faded, dried plastic and restore it back. I don't know if it'll do that, but it definitely does a good job. I've used that on quite a few of some of my Marks models that were pretty well weather checked. Another good thing for you guys to get is, go to Dollar General or something, pick up some of these real cheap makeup brushes. They make very good, I've got several different ones of them. Here's a small one. They make good brushes to get in like these tight spots where you can detail, get the dust out like on your steps here. You can get in these little tight spots here. So they're handy for that. That way, you don't have to pull the railings off. I have done that to some of these, you know, that the railings were actually rusted, that are chromed and they rust. Well, you almost have to take those off because they, you know, I had to go over them with a Scotch-Brite pad. I use a Scotch-Brite pad because it'll take that surface rust off without scratching the chrome. So that's what's good about using a Scotch-Brite pad for that. And then you can see I've already got all these little areas in here, you know, that you can't get otherwise with this little fine detailer brush. This is just a woman's makeup brush. You can get them, you know, Dollar General, Walmart, anywhere you can find women's cosmetics. You know, they make really good brushes for that. So there that is. Practically have a, I'll even kind of clean the dust off of these lamps. Kind of practically have a brand new engine now. Just like that. And that is, we can put this back on. That around. Okay, guys, I think we can go run this on the layout now. See how she does. We need to make sure we get some grease, you know, on these gears here. You know, when your Lionel's, if you read your Lionel maintenance manual, it's going to let you know that you need to oil the shafts, your axles, and these shafts. Anything that's a, you know, a shaft needs to oil, but they're going to mention lubricate your gears. Well, lubricate is to them grease. So you want to grease your gears. These need to be greased as well. Want to make sure these get done, and you know, we want to work that in real good. So we don't want to forget this part too. You know, I've seen some videos where the guy was talking on actually it was a steam locomotive to grease the axles, you pull your wheels to grease your axles. I have never seen Lionel recommend that you pull your wheels to grease the axles ever. Not something I'd recommend doing, especially on a steamer, because your wheels are quartered. It's not really something, I don't know why he thought you grease your axles, but you oil the axles. You only put grease on the gears. So you don't need to pull your wheels to grease the axle. You wouldn't want to grease your axles. It just doesn't make any sense why somebody would even suggest to do that, because I have never heard of ever putting grease on an axle. So so this is something that you need to make sure you get some grease on these axles here, or these these gears here. Like I said, the axles, we've already oiled those, so you know those are taken care of already. And
We just need to make sure you get some grease on these gears. You know, the internal gears need grease, but these external gears need grease as well. You know, all this maintenance goes towards, you know, good operations. And, you know, if you can get these Pullmore motored engines to run really, really quite well. I mean, they're dual Pullmores. You know, your can motors. You know, they're, you know, I'm not sure. I think they're 5-6 pole motors. So, you know, they have more poles. That's why they tend to run. But it's thought that these dual Pullmore motors, I mean, each one's a 3-pole, so it's like a 6-pole. So that's why they can tend to run as smooth as they do, is better than what most people would give them credit for doing. Even these MPC era models, you know, they kind of get a bad rap, but you know, you've seen this engine. It's built just like a post-war version. So, you know, there's nothing wrong with this model at all. So, like I said, I wasn't really disappointed when I discovered it wasn't a Williams model. I mean, yeah, sure, that's what I thought I was getting. And like I said, this model here, I did look it up. It's actually it's what I suspected it was. It's a 1988 model. So the catalog number on this is actually 6/18/31. So it's 618301. So that's actually the catalog number, and that would be an MPC era model. Now, this model should have had an electronic horn, so it's missing an electronic horn. I don't know if, you know, I mentioned this, you know, the smoke fluid. I use, this is the mineral oil that I'm talking about. This is mineral oil. And another good use for this mineral oil I've discovered is it makes an excellent product to remove. I mean, these trucks are not, don't have that white residue. If you've seen some of that white residue on some of the, especially some of the post-war models, you can just take a little bit of this mineral oil. You know, this bottle of mineral oil, by the way, is $4, $3.97 for 16 ounces. So, you know, your smoke fluid is at least $6-7 or more for, oh gosh, what is a couple of ounces? So, you know, that was my issue. Nobody around here sells, you know, JT Mega Steams. It's almost impossible to find anybody that carries that around here. So if I got any JTs, I would need to pay shipping on top of it. So, you know, I'm going to spend $10-12 for a bottle of smoke fluid, and when I can go down and have, you know, gosh, I've got a lot of engine. This will last me a long time. I mean, I can't remember. I think I bought this maybe 4 years ago. So I've made I've made my own smoke fluid with it, and you know, it's all the smoke fluid I'll ever need, probably. You know, I like the JTs. Don't get me wrong. I'd love to be able to buy it. I would buy it if somebody around here would sell it. But you know, I'm not paying shipping for it and have to wait to get it. And you know, I want to be able to go to the store and buy it and when I want it. So there that is. We'll let this get incorporated in there a little bit. It doesn't hurt to let that work in. You see a little bit of wetness to it. It's, you can take and kind of get the worst of it off of there, but it doesn't really hurt to leave that. It'll continue to work in there, and then this is one way to kind of restore your trucks. Like I say, these probably really didn't need it, but this is such a a nice looking model. I mean, it looks in really good shape. I'm just surprised how well the shell is, or how nice the shell is in this. So I don't know what the story is behind this engine. It looks like it's I'm almost wondering if this wasn't like a factory defect and somebody messed with, and I don't know if they were trying to get it to work again. I mean, because it was in working order, so obviously somebody's restored it to work, if they've restored it. But there's a reason it doesn't have the horn in it. And this just may be something somebody could have brought back, and then they tried to refurbish it. Could just be a refurbished locomotive that somebody sold without the horn. Hard to say, but there we go. At least I got these. That darkened up the truck somewhat. So now I think we can take it over and we'll run on the layout.
Hello, everybody. Just wanted to do a kind of a quick update on this model that I bought. This is at Williams Lionel Southern Trainmaster I bought. And for you that may have watched the previous videos. I've ran into something here that, was really unusual. So I thought it was worth kind of pointing out, just because this has turned out to be, a good example of things that can go wrong. So, this is a model for it. So, in the previous video, the repair I did on this, if you guys recall, if you watched that video, that when I pulled this brush plate off, these brushes, came out of the holder, but this little, on the armature shaft here, this little bearing was on there too. Well, that's not supposed to happen, Maybe I should have been paying a little bit more attention. It's like, hello, McFly. But, this is not something, in my defense, that you look to go wrong. So, what I did here is, the way I found out that this is continuing to be an issue is once I got this all put back together and ran it for a while. I like to run my engines after I get them, maintained and everything. I like to break them in, go through a break-in period where I run these for a while, and I'll run them in forward and backwards, just to get everything worked in and to get everything, situated on them. But when I was running this engine forward, it was fine, but apparently when I ran it backwards, it didn't take long. I think I made one lap. I think it was on the second lap around, and I was noticed it was struggling to run correctly. It was really herky-jerky. And, I had this on the lower loop. So fortunately, this didn't happen in the tunnel. But this bearing, apparently, I got a motor here that threw a bearing. Not something you can say every day on your Lionel engines, but it apparently threw this bearing out, and it must have fell down in here. You know, it doesn't look like it could fall out, but I suppose if it fell on her just right, and if it turned, and I did find this bearing, fortunately, between the rails on the gap between on the span between the two tables. So on my makeshift bridge there that I built out of wood. So it was just fortunately right there. So that was lucky, you know, because that's not something that I don't know if you can get a part for. You'd have to buy a whole new bearing plate probably. But so I got lucky there, and you know, so right away I thought, you know, I need to do something about this. But you know, this bearing is not pressed into this plastic or bakelite here. There's actually another brass sleeve in here that the bearing slides into. Well, those surfaces are both smooth. I'm not sure what would hold that bearing into the metal sleeve in there, but it must be a press fit. So, you know, I decided, you know, I've had some luck fixing other stuff with super glue, so I thought, you know, it's worth a shot. I mean, what do you got to lose? So I decided to clean this up real good. You know, you're going to have to use something like isopropyl alcohol. You know, you got to get all you can't leave any residual oil in there to, you know, to glue that properly. So you know, I took some alcohol and cleaned all these surfaces up real well, and then I simply just put a little bit of super glue all the way around the bottom edge of this bearing before I slid it back in. I left this plate in place just so I could, I had this other motor to go by, just to make sure I could seat this bearing to the proper depth. And so I kind of used this one here as a guide for that. So, you know, I just put some around the leading edge of that and just carefully put it back down in there. And then while it was drying, I let that dry for a while. You know, this E unit here was bugging me. So I took the mounting post for these wires, and you know, it's through this fibered insulator here. It was bent in. You know, something must have hit that and must have broke it at the same time. Must have hit it pretty hard and bent that in. So I took the liberty. You know, I took all this back apart and actually took the little tiny wire here. This soldering stud here, or the soldering post on here, has a notch in it where you can take and wrap these wires around. These wires were just soldered right to the side of the post. I suppose when it broke off, they didn't really have a good way to, you know, secure it. So I took and wrapped both these and the two pickups around that, and then soldered. And I took the lamp wires here, you know, because there's a lot of stuff going on here, and I just simply twisted them together and laid on top and solder that to it. Not the best, but that way, if I want to, I don't have to disturb. I can solder and unsolder these lamps if I want to, and without disturbing my pickup or the this wire again on the E unit coil. And because this wire that's soldered into this post, it goes down here and is your power for one side of your fingers here in your E unit. So I didn't want to disturb all that, and it's soldered in there really securely. You'd almost have to replace this whole fiber post or get another E unit, I suppose. But so I took and put that all back, and you know, I did kind of a poor job here. I took some hot glue and got around that real good, you know, and then I thought this was skinned over. The reason this looks really rough like that, I thought that was skinned over. So I took my finger, I know, hello, McFly, and I touched that hot hot glue, and it turns out I'm pretty quick at doing that part. So, we in the field we had our superintendents. They'd always ask, "Hey, don't you have any fast electricians?" And I'd tell them, "No, all of our electricians are just half-assed." So, this is one of those things that it's not going to bother me as long as that's a lot more secure than it was. At least it's not floating around. So I thought I would just do a kind of an update on this to kind of let you know some of the things go wrong, because we tend to think when things go wrong, we tend to think, well, it's wiring or the motor or an E unit or a board or something, when a lot of times, more often than not, it's just some kind of little weird thing like this. But this is, I've restored quite a few models, and I have never, ever encountered anything like this before. So, you can kind of second guess whether that super glue is going to hold or not. Like I say, I got nothing to lose, so why not? And just FYI, I've successfully glued the commutators back to the armatures on a Marx Western Pacific E7, and it turns out it's one of my better running models to this day. So, like I say, if you got nothing to lose, why not? Just don't let people tell you, well, you can't do that, because it turns out you can. Now, I'm not saying this is going to last forever, but it's lasting for now, and that's all that matters. So, I can fix it somewhere else down the road if I run across the parts. So it's one of those things, you can get your engines up and running, without ordering a bunch of parts, with the stuff you got. So I'd highly encourage you to, look at different things as the culprit. It's just fortunate that I discovered that. The only reason, as soon as it started acting up, first thing I did was pull that shell off, because I knew that bearing wasn't supposed to come out of there like that. That's the first thing I checked, and lo and behold, apparently run this thing in reverse threw that bearing up out of there. I was just fortunate to find it. So just wanted to do an update on this, just because it's had some unusual problems. It's been a good candidate to kind of use to show you things that are gone wrong. Now, I've got this all back together now, and with all the repairs and the servicing, turns out this is a pretty decent model. So don't let anybody tell you these MPC engines aren't any good. I know that bearing came out, but that's just really unusual even for an MPC model. But this motor assembly here is real similar to the 2333s of the post-war era. If you remember those motors. So to me, this is a pretty quality model. It's basic. It's just got dual motors and an E unit, but for me, that's all I need. If I want to, I can upgrade these, which sounds pretty easy. Nice thing about the Trainmasters, plenty of room in here. You could build a 2-bedroom apartment in there. It's got so much room. So I may upgrade these with some sounds later on. You can Third Rail is the place to buy your ERR boards. They have the electric railroad boards. You can buy the rail sounds boards through them, and they can be wired directly, and they're set up to wire into their commander boards, or they can be wired in standalone directly off of track power. So I've done some upgrades on those, so they're pretty easy to do if you're not wanting to go into doing the control systems and buying the control boards. They do have the AC, DC, and cruise commander boards if you want those as well. So And it's a pretty easy upgrade. They make it easy to integrate the rail sounds board into that. They have the JST connector where it just plugs in, but you can modify that to hardwire directly into your AC power and ground, and it comes with all the hardware, speaker and everything to modify this. And they actually have a Trainmaster rail sound, so they're pretty small boards. I mean, they're the modern day rail sounds. I'm not sure what version it is. I think they might be Rail Sounds 5, so they don't really take up that much room. As long as you can find a good place to mount the speaker. Like I said, the nice thing about these Trainmasters, plenty of room in there. So we'll get back to the other segments of the video. Thanks.